Hi there, this is Tatiana Indina, and I'm continuing telling you how I do fundraising for startups. And today I will tell you a bit more about my fundraising strategies and how I work with founders. But first, I wanted to do this one thing with me. I wanted to imagine your future success. I just wanted to imagine it for a moment. Imagine that you've successfully raised your first round. How would it feel like? You probably would feel a little more secure. Now you can afford renting a cool office, expand your team, your product is getting better, your company is growing. You now have a higher rank among other founders and investors. And now let's teleport a bit further in the future. Imagine you've already raised your Series A, Series B, Series C, D, F, and you finally made it to IPO. How would it feel like? How would success feel like for you? Imagine that picture. One morning you wake up famous. Your phone doesn't stop ringing, your mailbox is full with all the greetings and party invites. Everyone wants to be your friend suddenly. Media is going crazy about you. Every tech news outlet is trying to get a hold of you. Your company name is now on all those headlines. Your team is cheering up for you. You made a family proud. You feel like a rock star. You finally made it. This might be a bit overwhelming, but soon you'll get used to it. You are now that legendary founder. And success is now your new last name. I just wanted to feel this amazing, uplifting feeling when you finally made it. That all your efforts, your hard work is finally rewarded. That all your battles were not useless. You made them count. You've proven that all those who believed in you from the very beginning and those who supported you were right. Your company is now making a difference. It is transforming the world. I just wanted to keep this image of your success in your head, in your heart, and to get back to it from time to time. It is really important to be able to see your future success, to see your final goal, where you're heading to, and stay motivated, to keep believing that you can, and to surround yourself with people who also believe that you can too. But what is more important for the founder is to know your purpose, to remember why you started doing what you are doing, and to have this deep personal connection with your product, with the problem that you are solving. Because without that, you won't be able to persevere, to push harder, to not give up. Because fundraising, I can tell you, just like growing your company, is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Now, why am I telling you all this? Because I think it's really important to believe that you can raise. Without that, it will be really hard for me to work with you. I've seen so many founders just giving up in the middle after receiving several rejections or negative feedback from the investors, not being able to digest that and just decided to drop things. And of course, they regretted about it afterwards when somebody else raised a huge round with the same product that they had. So just telling you, don't be that guy. Be ready to fight for your company, for your business, for your future success. Now, back to fundraising. Let me tell you why many founders choose me to do their fundraising campaign and how working with me can lead you to your future success. First of all, I am plugged in the right networks. Throughout my career, I've built connections with top global venture funds and other investor groups. On my list are top of Silicon Valley venture funds and most of East Coast investors as well. Plus, many of those funds have global offices in Asia, UK, Israel, Europe, Southeast Asia, etc. And it took me several years to build that list, and it is being constantly updated to make sure that we keep track on all the new venture funds and individual investors entering the industry. Second, I connect various ecosystems between each other. I've previously lived in Central Asia and several countries in Europe, so I pretty much understand the struggles that entrepreneurs from other tech ecosystems and other economic environments face. In fact, majority of founders I've seen are coming from different countries and places outside of Silicon Valley, or even the founders from United States who don't have technology background and come from other sectors and industries outside of tech bubble. They often speak different language than investors do. And this is how investors immediately understand that you don't belong to their circle, you don't belong to this community, you are an outsider. And that is why sometimes it is hard for those founders to get a hold of investors, because they just do many mistakes in communication. Because definitely there are certain standards and formats of communication inside of the tech bubble. The format, how you write your email, how you write your summary, what should be in your deck, what you should say, what should be that one sentence to attract investors' attention, which numbers you need to put in it, which names you should drop, etc., etc. So what I do as an intermediary, I connect the dots. I help you speak the language that investor understands. And for investors, my role is also quite valuable because for them, I'm someone who connects them with startups from other tech ecosystems outside of United States and Silicon Valley. I was lucky to be in the right time in the right place, I would say, to evidence the best years of Silicon Valley. So as an insider, I had an advantage to learn what are the places investors hang out at, what are the parties they go to, what are the networking events you can meet investors, what are the favorite coffee shops of all the VCs, etc., etc. And this is how I learned that Silicon Valley is not quite an inclusive club. And it always had a reputation as an elite club for Stanford dropouts and people who were fortunate enough to live in the neighborhoods of Palo Alto. So they were part of certain circles. They knew somebody who was able to introduce them to somebody. And this is how the introduction system worked. Of course, with the global pandemic, this geographic barrier got disrupted. So it's now not a requirement that you need to show up and meet that investor in person. But the barrier to entrance still remains quite high because of all the great competition that is happening. And although investors are now taking Zoom meetings from around the world, but that doesn't make them more available because of all the amount of all those entrepreneurs and founders trying to get in touch with them. The competition between the great projects is rather high. So having previous relationships with those investors definitely helps. Because I have these existing relationships with many investors and I've developed certain reputation, they are more likely to respond to me and to be nice to the startups that I bring, because they know that I can also bring some other cool projects, and it is always a two-way street. So having somebody who can make your hustle easier is definitely a benefit. You can always try do it yourself, of course, but I'm telling you that is not easy. Investors are pretty immune to being bombarded by hundreds and thousands of founders on a weekly basis, especially if those are cold emails, and they got pretty annoyed if you start harassing them on social media. With the cold calls, response time can be unlimited. And if your deck doesn't look appealing to them, you might never hear back. Or sometimes your email can go straight to the trash bin. So if you're thinking that you can just pull out the Crunchbase and dig into all the investor databases and then just cold call everybody, I'm telling you that's not going to be very easy. In fact, in my experience, I've seen a number of founders who tried doing it themselves after talking to me, and they disappeared for a few months and then they came back because they didn't succeed. and they come back and tell me, now maybe you can help us with this. But what they forget is that at this point, it might be already a much worse situation because a fundraising cycle has its timing and you need to be aware when the season starts and when it ends. And B, if you already contacted a number of investors and they didn't want to put money in, and now you come back to me and the next investor I'm gonna bring you to will already know most likely that you talked to such and such because, investors talk to each other. So they probably heard already about your project, but now you're not a hot startup for them anymore to invest. Timing is a critical factor here because if you are doing your fundraising campaign for too long and many investors already heard about you, but since nobody invested, that just simply means you're not investable. It doesn't mean actually that your project is bad. Well, sometimes it can be a problem with a project, but most times it is the strategy that was done wrong. You need to maximize your opportunities in the limited amount of time. Talk to as many investors as possible, but in a short period of time. And it is really challenging for the first-time founder to get those back-to-back meetings in just a few weeks. It is very important for you to be strategic about your fundraising campaign from the very beginning. So my message to you is don't waste your time, especially when you know that time is money in this game and the burn rate of your company is probably a huge pressure for you. Speaking of timing, I also want to mention accelerators here. Last time I was already talking about accelerators and what is important to understand about option with accelerators. It is highly recommended to go to an accelerator if you are an early stage, like idea stage company. But if you already have a working product, you have an existing market, product market fit, a user database, you have paying customers, you have sales, you have traction, you have revenue. At this point, you don't need accelerator. You just go straight to the investors and talk to them as soon as possible. As I said previously, in a group program with an accelerator, you can waste a lot of time. The chances that somebody will gonna raise with a similar product are always high. In an accelerator, like I mentioned before, you will be put in a group, in a batch, and you will move with the speed of the group. And then at the end of this batch, at the demo day, you will be all pitching to the same investors on the same day. So your chances to stand out from this group of really bright, carefully selected startups are not very great. In fact, accelerators never guarantee you that you're gonna get funded. So you will just give away your equity and not necessarily you will get investment. If you're an early stage startup and you want to get an accelerator experience, I can recommend you just watch all the Y Combinator Startup School videos on YouTube for free. And that would be pretty much all the content you need and all the useful information you can possibly get. And you can meet other founders at the networking events. While on the opposite, if you choose to work with me, then it pretty much gives you a fast track. Because not only I will give you all the feedback on your deck, help you fix all the mistakes, rework your deck with you, walk you through your pitch, help you improve it, prepare you how to answer investors' questions, share all the life hacks, how to present you and your team. When we first meet, I will review your project and will provide you a very honest feedback from the investor perspective on what are the strengths and weaknesses of your project and how to present yourself in the best possible way. I will point out at all your mistakes, all the problems, and we will together fix them and improve everything to make sure everything looks great. We will pretty much crash test your pitch and your pitch deck in a safe environment to make sure when you are on that meeting with that investor, you make no mistake. Not just me and my team will be by your side all the time. throughout the process, connecting you with the right investors, doing all the research and profiling for you, doing all the due diligence on investors, doing all the intros, emails, calls, project summaries. We will help you prepare for the meetings, share investor profiles, schedule your meetings for you. We will literally cater your investors to you on a silver platter. And all you will have to do is just to make them fall in love with you and your startup. After the meetings, we will also do all the follow-ups. We will help you process the investors' feedback on your project. If needed, we will even go with you to your investor meetings and supervise you and help you prepare for the follow-up meetings, for the second and third meeting. Meeting with the team, meeting when they start doing the due diligence on your startup. So we will literally do all the work for you, and you will have a dedicated, personalized mentor throughout the process. And by the way, the whole process usually takes about 2 months. From my experience, I can tell you that it is extremely valuable to have someone by your side and to help you deal with all the rejections that you might hear or the negative feedback, help you extract useful information from every meeting to improve your startup for the next meeting. Because what I've seen is that many founders are just not used to deal with negative feedback from the investors. They just get upset or get discouraged, or they start arguing and being defensive. But that doesn't help, of course, building relationships with those investors. And the founder might even start sabotaging their own project just because they got upset. They can start being overly critical or start procrastinating or start being distracted and find various reasons why this is not important for them anymore. At the end, we're just humans, and some of us just can get overly emotional throughout the process, especially when you're not prepared to deal with so many rejections. You never know how you're going to react when you're there. That is why I would say having a personal coach and a mentor by your side when you're going throughout the process is extremely helpful. Somebody who will help you stay on track and just keep pushing. So what I'm offering you here is a personalized concierge service on fundraising, where all your meetings will be organized for you. So you don't need to spend your time researching those investors, understanding who is right for you, who is not, trying to connect with one person after another. This whole process will be organized, scheduled, supervised, and everything will be under control. Let me tell you, just because I've seen it a lot, when you're doing it by yourself for the first time, you're making a lot of wrong moves. And some of the mistakes can be really costly. There have been a number of stories in the community when some unethical investors would be incentivized to take a meeting with the founder, but not because they wanted to invest, but because they wanted to get information for one of their portfolio companies or some other project they are currently investing at. So just beware that stories happen and try to avoid making expensive mistakes. Fundraising is quite challenging, especially now when the startup market has become increasingly competitive, and having a great idea without a business in place, without a product that sells, without existing user database, it is almost impossible to raise at this point. Investors have become pretty spoiled by the cool projects, so it is getting harder and harder to surprise them and make them interested. That is why having an established reputation has an added value. Investors like working with me. I don't know, maybe having a woman really helps in this game, but it's not about the charm. They're more open to take meetings with me and the projects that I bring because they know that through me they can have access to many great deals. There is a certain level of trust because they know I'm not gonna bring them bad projects. I'm also quite selective with who I work with, and I select my startups carefully. So now maybe you see why choosing to work with people who are specialized on investor relations can be a good idea, and that can really maximize your chances to raise and do it fast. In my case, what I can guarantee to you is that the investors that I will bring will be already initially interested in your startup based on the information and the deck that we will provide. Which investors this will be depends on your project, of course. We have hundreds and hundreds of investors in our database in all possible industries and tech verticals, from fintech to gaming to agri-tech to biotech to medtech, etc. The main thing is that your project must have a tech innovation at the core. It can be AI or blockchain, or maybe you have some unique business model, or you discovered a new market, or you're solving a unique problem. But there always must be a tech innovation at the core of your startup. What I also can guarantee is that those investors will be relevant. I already mentioned that I worked with all of the top 100 global venture funds, all the angel investor groups, family offices, private equity funds. I've ran an acceleration program at Mission to Mars Academy that I founded, where we've been organizing hundreds of events for startups and investors, demo days, roadshows, one-on-one pitch meetings, virtual Zoom investor meetings, investor parties on a boat in Miami, investor expert panels at the conferences, and many others. In fact, you can go to my websites, Indina-Consulting.com, missiontomars.academy, and Tatiana-Indina.com, and take a look at all the great companies that I worked with and all the great feedback that I received from them. So to summarize, how exactly I will maximize your chances to raise your round? First, by making sure your pitch deck looks great and you have all the important information that investors want to see. Second, by putting you in front of the right, relevant, and quality investors. Third, by preparing you for those investor meetings. Your pitch, your Q&A, all the negotiation tactics, the deal close, etc. I will support you throughout the process. Fourth, I will be an intermediary that will help you build the right communication with the investors and make sure that if they don't invest in you this round, that next round you definitely have them by your side. Fifth, I will also connect you with the attorneys and the mentors that your startup might need in a process. But the final result, of course, will depend on you. It will depend on how well you will perform at those meetings. Will you bring your A game? Will you nail your pitch? Will you make a strong presentation, a strong first impression? Will you charm those investors? How convincing and passionate you will be at those meetings. If you're able to close that deal. Last but not least, are you a likable personality that investors would want to work with? What I can promise to you is that I will be by your side, supporting you throughout the whole process, being your personal coach and your cheerleader to make sure that you raise your first round in the shortest period of time. And by the way, I'm a fun person to work with, but most importantly, I bring results. And honestly, I just love working with great founders. We have a great time together. I often get excited and inspired about the cool innovation, the product that you're building, and I become your fan, your evangelist. I commit to be your greatest supporter and make sure that you succeed. But I need to mention, I'm also quite selective and I don't work with everybody. I have rather strict ethical criteria, so I will not let you mess with my investors and burn my reputation by communicating with them in a wrong way. But if I like you, if we click, if we make a great team, then I will be the greatest help you can possibly get. I will go above and beyond to help you raise, because your success is my success too. So, if you are currently planning your fundraising campaign or you're raising your first round now, and you have some revenue or a little bit of a budget to cover the service fees for our services, please do reach out to me. We will schedule a call with you, we will have a meeting. I will tell you more about the process, how everything works, what is included, how we will work together, answer all your questions. And that would be your first step towards getting to that success picture that you visualized at the very beginning of this podcast. We will discuss exactly how we will make you the next success story that the world will hear about. That's it for today. It was Tatiana and Indina. Please reach out if you want me to help you do your fundraising.